Hello everyone, this is Kingrats here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. The NHL's Stanley Cup Playoffs first round officially ended yesterday, and the second round matchups have now all been determined. Of course, my original playoff prediction video for this postseason is completely garbage. I was wrong on so many levels in that video in hindsight, but there are second chances, right? So I'm going to be trying to do a second chance bracket for the Stanley Cup Playoffs, and I'm going to try and predict every matchup from the second round all the way to the Stanley Cup Final from start to finish. If you guys are interested in this type of content, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this one, and let's get into it. So this is using the official second chance bracket from the NHL. So the second round matchups we have are the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals, and the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'm going to start with the Western Conference first. So between Winnipeg and Dallas, this was officially completed last night. Dallas defeating Colorado in Game 7, and Winnipeg having an incredible end to their series against St. Louis, and they came back and won that in 7 games. Between these two guys, we're looking at very different teams and dynamics. Dallas has got great offense. They really showed that they can be much more powerful in the playoffs. Mikko Rantanen especially, who was picked up at the trade deadline this year, he looked very good in Game 7. For Winnipeg, they are reeling a bit with injuries. Notably, Mark Scheifele is out. He missed the last 2 games of their first round series, and Connor Hellebuyck has underperformed a little bit to this point. We'll see how the Jets do in round 2 if they are going to get any reinforcements. For Dallas, they're still without Jason Robertson, but perhaps he'll be back in round 2 at some point. And also, we've seen greater improvement with Jay Gottinger as the Avalanche series went on, and they were getting really good scoring from pretty much all over the lineup. Honestly, I'm going to go with Dallas here. It's unfortunate, but I just think the Stars have more depth, and I just don't really like the Jets' chances in this series. Vegas versus Edmonton. Honestly, the Oilers, as I expected, against the Kings, never count out a team that's got generational talents in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They were fantastic in this series. Edmonton also got lucky with a couple of bad breaks and some serious miscues on the bench by the Kings. For Vegas, they had a bit of a scare against Minnesota, losing back-to-back games in blowouts, but they got a clutch overtime win, and then they basically carried on with the series from there and dominating most play on the offensive side of things. I really think that the big question here is a combination of both goaltending and defense. I think Vegas has both in their favor. I mean, their defense is probably a lot more structurally sound than the Oilers. They also don't have to worry about Matthias Ekholm on the back end, since Edmonton will be missing him, at least for the series, I believe. And for the Oilers, they have already turned to Calvin Pickard just to get through the Kings series, as Stuart Skinner has heavily underperformed so far. So honestly, I think I'm going to have to go with Vegas here. I'm sorry if you're an Oilers fan, but honestly, Vegas probably wins this series 9 times out of 10. When it comes to length, I'll say Dallas beats Winnipeg in 6 games, and I'll say Vegas beats Edmonton in 6 games as well. Looking into Eastern Conference, I'm going to go from bottom up this time. Carolina versus Washington. Both of these did a very good job in controlling their first round series. Washington had a bit of a scare with Montreal, but they were able to get through that no problem. And Carolina made pretty short work out of the Devils, considering that they took advantage of a depleted system in their lineup over there. I still think that when it comes to like balance, I really like Washington just because of how well guys like Dylan Strome, Anthony Beauvillier have been playing alongside of the typical generational stars like Alex Ovechkin. For Carolina, you've gotten great work out of Sebastian Aho. Keep an eye out for Andrei Svechnikov. Maybe Jacob Slavin breaks out or something offensively. Of course, the question mark is still regarding goaltending for Carolina. I think they're going to become reliant on Pyotr Kochetkov from this point on. I think Anderson is still injured, if I'm correct. I haven't really heard much about him. For Washington, they have Logan Thompson, considering that I thought he was going to get injured up to this point because of what happened against Montreal, and but he's still good to go. I just think that if we're looking at a balanced attack here, I want to say the star power for Carolina probably pulls through, and maybe Kochetkov outperforms Logan Thompson. That's kind of my guess. So I'll say Carolina moves on. For Toronto, Florida, let's be honest here, Florida really dominated Tampa Bay. If you saw my video on that series, the Lightning got pretty much hosed in a lot of areas, and the Panthers did a very good job at really maintaining that offensive physicality and pressure. They also have superior goaltending compared to the Leafs in this series. For Toronto, they still haven't really proven much. Yes, you beat Ottawa in the first round, but your numbers still don't really show that you did dominate in that series. They really allowed the Sens to dictate much possession. They were getting great goaltending out of Anthony Stolarz. The Stars did come through in Game 6, and Matthews and Nylander in particular, so that's good for them. But the question is, are they going to be able to handle a more physical team in Florida, which typically they struggle against? The Panthers also have clearly the superior goaltending. If Sergei Bobrovsky maintains his playoff form that he had against Tampa, then this series is going to be a very tough hill to climb. And so I'm just going to say the Panthers probably win this. I do think the Leafs will keep the series interesting, but Panthers will probably win in the long run. So I will say Panthers win in 6 games, and I'll say Carolina beats Washington in 6 games as well. Now, looking at the conference finals, Dallas versus Vegas. This is, I think, a rematch of 2023's Western Conference Final. I really do have some confidence in Dallas this year. I said it in my original prediction video. I thought they would go to the finals this year, and I think I'll stick with that. If they become fully healthy by the conference finals at this point, assuming they get here, they probably beat Vegas. They have better depth. They've probably got better goaltending from Jake Oettinger versus Aiden Hill, and the star talent probably overpowers Vegas. So I'm going to go with Dallas making it out of the Western Conference. And then from Florida and Carolina, this is a series that I think could kind of go either way. I think it really depends as to whether or not Carolina maybe gets a little bit of health injuries wise, if they can get a little bit healthier. For Florida, I think it depends as to how much energy they got left in the tank. They've gone through so much overall games over the last couple of years that, you know, eventually the wear and tear is probably going to catch up to them. If it doesn't catch up to them by the conference finals, then probably it will catch up to them by the Stanley Cup final. But I do think that the overwhelming physicality of the Panthers probably beats Carolina. At the same time, if Bobrovsky is still playing very well, then I'm pretty sure he's superior to both Frederik Andersen and Pyotr Kochetkov, whoever plays in this series. So I'll say the Panthers move on. And then we look at the Stanley Cup final. As much as some people might be thinking of a repeat here, I don't think the Panthers repeats. I do think that the amount of games that they've played over the last few years is really going to be adding on to their effectiveness for the Cup final if they make it this far. I just think Dallas is probably the more well-rounded team and probably just has more left in the tank at this point, especially if they're healthy. I do think the Oettinger versus Bobrovsky battle will be very interesting to check out, but I will say that Dallas wins the Stanley Cup final. So that is my official bracket, my second chance bracket for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs in the NHL. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.